We often think that intimacy starts in the bedroom. But the truth is, intimacy begins long before that moment. It starts in the quiet conversations, the small gestures, the way we make each other feel seen and heard every single day. Emotional connection isn't something we can rush or manufacture. It's something we cultivate patiently and intentionally. If you want to emotionally connect with your husband before intimacy, it begins with vulnerability. It's about showing up, not with demands or expectations, but with openness. Sharing what's on your heart without assuming he already knows, letting him see the real you, the messy parts, the uncertain parts, the dreams you're afraid to speak out loud. Vulnerability invites vulnerability. And when you create that space, he's more likely to step into it with his own truth. We all want to feel close to the people we love. We want that sense of connection that makes us feel safe, seen, and valued. But so often, without even realizing it, we approach our relationships with expectations instead of vulnerability. We enter conversations, interactions, and even moments of intimacy, thinking about what we need, what we're not getting, what should happen. And while it's completely natural to have needs and desires, connection doesn't grow out of expectation. It grows out of vulnerability. When you come to your husband with expectations, whether spoken or unspoken, you create pressure. You may be thinking, I just wish he would open up more, or I wish he'd be more affectionate, or I need him to be more emotionally available. And those feelings are valid, but if you lead with those expectations, it can feel like a list of requirements he has to meet in order for you to be satisfied or close to him. He may feel like he's being measured, tested, or graded, and the moment someone feels they're being evaluated, they start to pull away. They get defensive. They retreat behind their own walls, not because they don't care, but because they don't feel safe enough to be fully themselves. But when you start with vulnerability, you're telling him, I trust you with my heart. You're showing him the parts of you that aren't polished or perfect. You're willing to admit the things you're still figuring out, the things you're afraid of, the things you hope for, even if you're not sure how to get there. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. It's standing in front of someone and saying, this is me, not hiding, not pretending. And that kind of honesty invites honesty in return. It invites trust. It invites openness. Think about it this way. When you tell your husband, I feel lonely sometimes and I really miss feeling close to you, that's vulnerability. It's different from saying, you never make time for me, or you're always distant. The first statement shares your feeling. It invites him in. The second puts him on the defensive. Vulnerability softens the space between you. Expectation hardens it. Starting with vulnerability means being willing to share without demanding a specific outcome. It means saying, here's what's true for me right now, not here's what you need to do to fix this. It's scary because there's no guarantee of how the other person will respond, but that's also what makes it powerful. Vulnerability creates the conditions for intimacy to grow because it shows your husband that you're not trying to control him or change him. You're simply inviting him to meet you in an honest human place. It might look like saying, I've been feeling really disconnected lately and it's made me feel a little insecure. I'd love to feel closer to you again, but I don't even know where to start. Notice the difference. You're not blaming, you're not accusing, you're not setting conditions. You're revealing something personal, something tender, and you're asking for closeness without making it a demand. That's vulnerability. And that vulnerability gives him room to respond, to step toward you, to meet you in that open space. And when you lead with vulnerability, you also give permission for imperfection. You're saying, we don't have to have it all figured out, we don't have to do this perfectly, but I'm here and I'm willing. And often that willingness is what builds the bridge. That willingness tells your husband, you don't have to be perfect either. You're allowed to show up with your flaws, your doubts, your uncertainties. Vulnerability lowers the stakes. It turns the relationship from a performance into a partnership. In the end, emotional connection doesn't come from making a list of what your partner needs to do differently. It doesn't come from setting up rules or ultimatums or scorecards. It comes from showing up with an open heart, even when it's scary, even when you're not sure how it will be received. Because when you are willing to be vulnerable first, you're offering the greatest gift, the gift of being real, and the invitation for him to be real too. And that is where true intimacy begins. One of the most powerful ways to build emotional connection with your husband is to create a space where he feels safe. Not safe in the physical sense, but emotionally safe. Safe to be himself. Safe to tell the truth. Safe to show up without fear of being criticized, belittled, or rejected. Because the truth is, intimacy can't grow in a space where someone feels judged. Judgment closes people off. It makes them hide. It makes them retreat. But safety invites people to step forward. Many men have been raised in environments where emotions were seen as weakness. They were taught, directly or indirectly, that they had to be strong, capable, in control. Vulnerability wasn't something they were encouraged to express. So even with the woman they love most, it can feel risky to open up. It can feel scary to admit when they're struggling, when they're afraid, when they don't have the answers. And if they sense judgment, even subtle judgment, they'll shut down. Not because they don't care, but because it doesn't feel safe to be real. Creating safety means showing him over and over again that it's okay to be imperfect, that he doesn't have to have it all figured out, that he won't be punished for being human. It's choosing to respond with understanding instead of criticism, with curiosity instead of frustration. It's saying, I'm here for you, even when he's not at his best. And it's resisting the temptation to correct, to fix, to control, when what he really needs is simply to be heard. When a man feels safe, he opens up in ways he never would otherwise. He'll tell you things he's never told anyone. He'll show you the parts of himself he's tried to hide from the world. And those moments of honesty, those moments of realness, that's where emotional intimacy lives. But he has to trust that he won't be met with shame or blame when he shows those parts of himself. He has to know that you're his ally, not his critic. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything's fine. That doesn't mean you never hold him accountable or that you let harmful patterns continue unchecked. But there's a difference between accountability and judgment. Judgment says, you're failing, you're not enough, you're letting me down. Accountability says, I see more in you, I know you're capable of better, I'm with you as you work through this. One pushes people away, the other draws them closer. You can make him feel safe by the way you listen. Sometimes the greatest act of love is listening without interrupting, without rushing to solutions, without turning the conversation back to yourself. Just being present, just making space for his words, even if they come out messy or incomplete, even if they're hard to hear, and even if they challenge you. Listening communicates, you matter. Your feelings matter, your experience matters. You can make him feel safe by the way you respond. When he admits a failure or a fear, resist the urge to pile on advice or tell him what he should have done differently. Sometimes what he needs most is simply to hear, that sounds really hard, I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm proud of you for sharing it with me. That response keeps the door open. That response lets him breathe. And you can make him feel safe by the way you hold his emotions. Sometimes he won't be able to articulate exactly what he's feeling. Sometimes he'll pull away, not because he doesn't love you, but because he's overwhelmed. In those moments, safety looks like patience. Safety looks like not taking his withdrawal personally. Safety looks like giving him space while staying emotionally available so he knows you're still there when he's ready to come back. When a man feels safe, he doesn't just feel connected to you, he feels free. Free to be vulnerable, free to grow, free to love, without armor. And that freedom deepens intimacy in ways nothing else can. Because at the end of the day, we all long for the same thing, a relationship where we can be fully ourselves, flaws and all, and know that we are still deeply loved. That's what safety gives. And that's what builds the foundation for true, lasting emotional connection. There's something powerful about feeling appreciated. It's a basic human need, but it's one we often overlook in long-term relationships. We assume the other person knows how we feel. Assume they know we're grateful, that we admire them, that we respect what they do, but assumptions don't build connection. Expressions do. And when it comes to emotionally connecting with your husband, few things open his heart more than feeling truly appreciated. Appreciation is different from simple compliments. It's deeper than saying, you look good today, or thanks for taking out the trash. Appreciation goes beyond surface-level praise. It's about recognizing the effort, the character, the intentions behind what he does and who he is. It's noticing the ways he shows up, even when it's hard. It's acknowledging the quiet sacrifices, the unseen contributions, the little ways he tries to make life better for you and the family. Many men are wired to feel love through respect and admiration. They want to know they're making a difference. They want to feel competent and capable in your eyes. And when they don't feel appreciated, it chips away at their confidence. They may not say it outright, but over time, a lack of appreciation creates distance. It makes them wonder if their efforts matter. It makes them feel invisible. And when a man feels unseen, he pulls back emotionally. Speaking the language of appreciation is a choice. It's choosing to verbalize the things you value about him, even if they seem small. It's saying, I love how hard you work for us, or I notice how patient you were with the kids today, and I admire that about you, or it means a lot to me that you always check the doors at night before bed. These words don't have to be grand or poetic, they just have to be sincere. When you speak appreciation, you create a positive emotional environment. You shift the focus from what's missing or what's frustrating to what's working, what's good, what's beautiful about the person in front of you, and that shift changes the energy between you. It softens defenses. It makes it safer for him to open up. It creates warmth, trust, and emotional closeness. Appreciation also builds emotional safety because it tells him he doesn't have to earn your love by being perfect. Because he's valued for who he is, not just for what he does. It tells him, I see you, I recognize your heart, I notice your efforts, even when you fall short. And when someone feels seen that way, they're more likely to want to meet you emotionally. They're more likely to share their inner world, their struggles, their dreams. Appreciation makes room for vulnerability. It's easy to forget appreciation in the busyness of life. When you've been together for a while, routines take over. You stop noticing the small things. You focus on what's not getting done, what's frustrating, what needs to change. But if you're intentional about practicing appreciation, you start seeing your husband through fresh eyes. You start catching the things he does right. And the more you acknowledge those things, the more they grow. Appreciation doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything's perfect. It's not about avoiding difficult conversations. It's about balancing correction with celebration. It's about making sure he hears 10 words of affirmation for every 1 word of critique. It's about letting him know that even when there are challenges, you still see the good in him. You still respect him. You still admire who he is at his core. Sometimes appreciation speaks even louder through actions than words. A small gesture, a handwritten note, a favorite meal cooked just for him. These simple acts can communicate, I see you, I value you, I don't take you for granted. It doesn't have to be big or expensive. It just has to be intentional. When you speak the language of appreciation consistently, you build emotional equity in your relationship. You create a reservoir of goodwill, trust, and connection that sustains you both during hard times. You remind him that he's not alone in carrying the weight of life, and you remind yourself of all the reasons you chose him in the first place. Because at the heart of every strong relationship is a deep, abiding sense of mutual appreciation. And when your husband knows he's appreciated, not just for what he does, but for who he is, you lay the groundwork for the kind of emotional intimacy that makes love last, deepen, and grow over time. When we think about emotional connection, we often imagine deep conversations, long talks late into the night, sharing our innermost thoughts. And while words are powerful, emotional intimacy isn't built through conversations alone. It's built through moments. Small, simple, meaningful moments that accumulate over time and create a sense of closeness that words alone can't achieve. Sometimes the most powerful connection happens when no one's speaking at all. Creating moments isn't about grand gestures or elaborate plans. It's about being present. It's about intentionally carving out space in your busy life to simply be together. Watching a favorite show side by side, sitting on the porch as the sun goes down, cooking a meal together without distractions, taking a quiet walk in the neighborhood. It's in these shared experiences, these pauses in the routine, that we reconnect without even trying. Your husband may not always be comfortable expressing his emotions verbally. He may not have been taught how to articulate his feelings or even understand them fully, but he likely shows love through actions, through shared activities, through spending time together. And when you meet him in those moments, when you join him in his way of connecting, you're building intimacy on his terms in a way that feels natural and safe for him. Think about the things he enjoys, the things that relax him, the things that make him light up. Is it a quiet fishing trip, a morning coffee on the patio, a late night drive listening to music? Find ways to step into those moments with him, not to force a deep conversation, not to make it an agenda, just to be present. Just to enjoy the space together. Because emotional connection often grows strongest in the spaces where no pressure exists. There's something powerful about shared silence. We underestimate how much intimacy is created simply by sitting quietly next to someone and knowing you're both at peace. You don't always have to be talking to be connecting. Sometimes just knowing you're with someone who accepts you exactly as you are without needing you to perform, explain, or impress is the most healing connection of all. Creating moments also means paying attention to the opportunities hidden in the ordinary. It's easy to think intimacy has to happen during big milestones or romantic dates. But some of the deepest connections happen in daily life. Folding laundry together while chatting about your day, standing side by side while brushing your teeth and catching each other's reflection in the mirror, laughing over a silly meme shared across the couch. These small, almost invisible moments matter. They remind you that you're a team, that you're walking life together, side by side. When you prioritize creating moments, you're also showing your husband that he matters to you beyond what he can do for you. You're saying, I enjoy your company. I want to be near you, even if we're not solving problems or having big talks. That kind of presence takes pressure off the relationship. It makes connection feel light, easy, natural, not another task to check off a list. Over time, these moments become a shared history. They become the memories you both hold on to when life gets tough. They become the foundation that holds you steady when challenges arise. And they make it easier to have those deeper conversations when they're needed because the trust and comfort have already been built in the quiet, ordinary time. Emotional connection is a process, not an event. It's not something you manufacture in a single conversation. It's something you nurture slowly and consistently by showing up again and again, by making time for togetherness, by creating small moments that say, I'm here, I see you, I value you. And in those moments, without even realizing it, your hearts move closer. Because in the end, it's not always the big speeches or the grand expressions that make love last. It's the quiet, steady rhythm of choosing each other day after day, moment by moment. That's where emotional intimacy grows. That's where true connection lives. One of the greatest gifts you can give your husband is the gift of being truly heard, not just listened to on the surface, but deeply, intentionally, wholeheartedly heard. So often in relationships, we listen with half our attention. We listen while preparing what we're going to say next. We listen waiting for a chance to explain ourselves, to correct, to defend, to persuade. But real emotional connection happens when we listen to understand, not to respond. When you listen to understand, you're not thinking about how to solve the problem right away. You're not rushing to fix it or minimize it. You're not preparing a counterpoint or quietly judging what's being said. You're making the choice to enter his world for a moment, to step into his perspective without bringing your own agenda. You're saying with your attention, what you feel matters to me. I want to see this through your eye. Many men aren't used to being truly listened to. They may be used to solving everyone else's problems, carrying burdens silently, or feeling like no one really wants to hear what's going on beneath the surface. So when you listen without interrupting, without correcting, without dismissing, when you make space for his voice, you create something rare and powerful. You create a safe place where he doesn't have to perform or be strong, a place where he can be vulnerable without fear. Listening to understand takes patience. It means resisting the urge to finish his sentences or jump in with advice. It means allowing silence to stretch between his words, giving him room to process what he's feeling before he puts it into words. It means asking gentle questions, not to interrogate or push, but to invite him deeper into his own truth. Tell me more about that. How did that make you feel? What was the hardest part of that for you? It also means holding back the temptation to make the conversation about you. When he shares something painful or difficult, it can be so easy to respond with your own story, your own frustration, your own example. And while those stories might be meant to relate, they can unintentionally shift the focus away from him. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stay right there with him in his story without turning the spotlight. When you listen to understand, you also give him permission to process emotions he may not even know how to name yet. You allow him to speak things out loud that he's been carrying quietly, and in that process he may discover clarity, relief, or even healing simply because someone cared enough to listen without judgment. This kind of listening doesn't require perfect answers. It doesn't require solving the issue in that moment. It requires presence. It requires patience. It requires humility. The willingness to let him be the center of attention for a while, even when you have your own needs and emotions swirling inside. And it requires trust. Trust that sometimes being heard is the solution itself. When you listen to understand, you show him that you're not trying to win an argument or prove a point. You're showing him that his heart, his thoughts, his feelings matter more than being right. You're telling him, I care more about staying connected to you than about fixing this right now. And that message builds bridges instead of walls. Over time, this kind of listening deepens your emotional intimacy. It creates a pattern of trust where he knows he can come to you with his worries, his frustrations, his dreams, and be met with open ears and an open heart. It makes it easier for him to share what's really going on instead of retreating into silence or avoidance. And it models for him the kind of listening you hope to receive in return. Because at the end of the day, we don't just want to be heard, we want to be understood. We want to feel known, accepted, and loved, even in our messiest, most confusing moments. When you listen to your husband this way, you're telling him, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. And that is the kind of connection that transforms a relationship from surface level to soul deep. There's a powerful difference between leading with empathy and leading with control. In a relationship, it's easy to fall into the trap of control without even realizing it. We think we're helping, we think we're guiding, we think we're protecting, but the more we try to manage, correct, or direct our partner's actions and emotions, the more we unintentionally create distance. Emotional connection doesn't grow under control, it grows under empathy. Leading with empathy means choosing to meet your husband where he is, not where you think he should be. It means accepting that he's on his own journey with his own struggles, his own fears, his own ways of processing life. It means being curious instead of critical, asking questions instead of making assumptions. Control tries to shape someone into who we want them to be. Empathy invites someone to be fully who they are without fear of rejection. Sometimes without meaning to, we try to fix the people we love. We see their flaws, their mistakes, their blind spots, and we step in to steer them in the right direction. But no one wants to feel like a project. No one wants to feel like they're constantly falling short. Control communicates, you're not doing it right. You're not enough as you are, let me take over. Empathy communicates, I see how hard this is for you. I trust you're capable of figuring this out. I'm here to walk alongside you, not ahead of you. When you lead with empathy, you create space for honesty. You make it safe for your husband to tell the truth about his struggles without fear of being judged or micromanaged. You show him that his emotions are valid, even if they don't make sense to you. You honor his process, even if it moves slower than you'd like. And in that space of acceptance, he's more likely to grow, to open up, to lean in toward the relationship instead of away from it. Empathy also requires humility. It's the willingness to admit that you don't have all the answers, that your way isn't the only way, that sometimes the best thing you can do is simply listen, hold space, and trust that love is more powerful than control. When you stop trying to manage every outcome, you give the relationship room to breathe. You let him bring his full self to the table, not just the parts he thinks will please you. Leading with empathy doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior or ignoring problems. It doesn't mean becoming passive or silent. It means approaching challenges from a place of compassion instead of criticism. It means asking, what's really going on underneath this behavior, instead of jumping straight to frustration or blame. It means believing the best about him, even when he's struggling to show up as his best self. Sometimes empathy looks like sitting quietly beside him when he's hurting without trying to talk him out of his feelings. Sometimes it looks like giving him space to process without taking his withdrawal personally. Sometimes it looks like offering encouragement instead of advice, affirmation instead of correction. And sometimes it looks like simply saying, I don't fully understand what you're going through, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. When you lead with empathy, you lead with love. You build emotional safety. You create a foundation of trust that makes it easier for both of you to be vulnerable, to tell the truth, to work through challenges as a team. Control may get short-term compliance, but empathy creates long-term connection. Control may force behavior, but empathy invites the heart. And at the end of the day, it's the heart you want to reach. Because real intimacy isn't about managing someone into who you wish they were. It's about loving them enough to meet them as they are and walking with them toward who they're becoming. And when you lead with empathy, you're not just building a stronger marriage. You're building a deeper friendship, a partnership built on mutual respect, compassion, and unwavering love.